My YouTube channel is called Wars Trek Game Crafter because I love Star Wars and I love Star Trek and I love gaming and making games, and crafter because I'm a crafter of games and films and other things, other crafty things. Kind of an artisan, jack of all trades. Came up with the name when I was in grad school for game development. Wars Trek Game Crafter. All one word. Been thinking a lot about all those sci-fi scenarios. Other stuff that I didn't touch on last night. 2001, the novel by Arthur C. Clarke, which is even also along the lines of this idea that there's a system of advanced civilizations out there in the stars. That got me thinking about Enchantress from the Stars, which is one of the best books I've ever read / listened to, which follows 3 civilizations on one planet. The indigenous people, the Imperials, who, and this is pre-Star Wars, but the sort of galactic empire that is colonizing the planet, and the natives think there's a dragon. And then there's this interplanetary service that goes around influencing fledgling civilizations. And so they can't directly interfere, but they're going to give they're going to try and balance the scales a little bit in the favor of the native. I forget what the name of the planet is. None of them look like each other. I mean, they're all humanoid, but I mean, this is where, see, this book, I'm not sure if it predates Star Trek, the TV series, the original series. I know it predates the movies Star Wars and Star Trek, the motion picture. And I can see all of these stories borrowing heavily from each other. You can see the host, too, borrows heavily from things in Star Trek, but this all informs my concept of what we call space doctrine in the church, which is the stuff that you want to talk about when you're a missionary, but you can't, either because it's not part of the discussions and it's, it's way too science fiction sounding for most people, or you got called to Germany like me and you're barely able to communicate the most rudimentary thoughts in German. Oh, and the other thing I love is Kurzgesagt, which goes in depth. It's a YouTube channel, German for In a Nutshell, and it goes in depth about all kinds of things, like the 3 possible futures of the universe given the information that we have, where it expands or contracts or just remains static. There was the concept of the Dyson sphere that was explored in a Star Trek The Next Generation episode, where Scotty was trapped in a pattern buffer in a transporter, and so he is able to join the generation of the next generation. And it's frustrating for him, of course, because in order to be an engineer now, he's going to have to go back to square one at his age. The Dyson sphere itself was a unique concept. The idea of the Dyson sphere is that there's a whole sphere built around the sun with a radius of the inner shell. The sun is at the center of the sphere, and then the inner shell is the radius from the sun one, is it 1 astronomical unit? That's the distance of the Earth from the sun. So the entire sphere is a sphere around the sun, the distance of where the Earth is now from the sun. That is a massive amount of material to construct something like that. And so the continents are on the inner wall of the sphere, and it's constantly daylight inside the sphere. It traps all the energy of the sun and makes generating power awesome. And then they have to, the sun is gonna, there's no inhabitants inside the Dyson sphere when they discover it, but they or maybe there are, I don't remember, but then they have to do something to keep the sun from having some kind of a solar flare. And yeah, so there must be inhabitants on the concavity continents. Kurzgesagt talks about the concept of the Dyson swarm, which is a bunch of solar collectors in orbit around the sun at a distance closer to where Mercury is at. And in fact, the idea would be that you would mechanize, since humans can't actually live in the conditions on Mercury, you would have to automate everything, and then you would build through AI and robotics. You would build the swarm units and then launch them by railgun into orbit and control them all from Earth or someplace farther than Mercury. But anyway, they would collect the power of the sun and then send it to wherever was needed, or charge batteries or something. All right. So that solves our energy problem, and everything is completely solar. The idea of the stellar engine, which is a next level kind of spacefaring civilization, where you actually harness the star's power to propel it and its entire solar system to wherever you want it to go. This concept blows my mind. The idea being that if, in a million or a billion or a trillion years from now, we are going to be on course with a supernova that threatens to destroy our solar system, we can move the star, the sun, to another location in the galaxy and keep everybody safe. So if you move the star itself, then all of the orbiting satellites, in other words, all the planets orbiting the sun, will naturally follow the pull of gravity, because we're already traveling around the galactic axis. It takes something like 300 million years for the sun to completely orbit the galactic center. So, but anyway, everything is moving. Everything is always in motion, and much faster than we can comprehend. But it's all inertia, so we don't register that we're moving, hurtling through space. So stellar engine would guide the solar system into a new orbit. So a civilization advanced as that is probably the kind of civilization that we're talking about when we're talking about an intergalactic federation or Congress or service, where they help young civilizations. They sort of steer and guide them to. And this gets me thinking about the three Nephites and other translated beings who, John, the Revelator, it's left to the reader's imagination in the Bible as to whether he actually died or never tasted of death and continues to minister on the earth. I think the TV show Highway to Heaven was based on that concept. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we believe through modern revelation that yes, he was in fact translated so that he will never taste of death, and that he'll just minister until the second coming of Christ. We have others as well, the three Nephites being three of them. We also know from modern revelation that worlds without number have been created by Christ, and the inhabitants thereof are begotten sons and daughters unto God. Does that mean they're human like us, or does that mean they're humanoid like in Star Trek, or these other, enchanters from the stars? Who knows? But spiritually, sons and daughters of God. The implications for extraterrestrial life being something that we're not fully comprehending one way or the other are tremendous. Anyway, I love this stuff, but I gotta go. So, I could talk about this stuff all day. All right, later.